There's one category of violent crime where the biochemical link is stark and clear. Whatever the broader social and environmental contribution to offending, there's demonstrable evidence of how some people accidentally create their own violence by deliberately changing the chemical mix of their metabolism.
The reason why I took anabolic steroids was so that I could get bigger and stronger. It seemed that the more steroids you took, whether it was true or not, the better they worked. And the popular word stacking came to be, where you would stack different drugs. Before you knew it, at one point I was taking 14 different steroids at a time, 7 injectables and 7 orals. And basically, you're trying to look for that magic elixir, that special combination that will put you over the top.
It's hard to be certain exactly what the mechanism is by which anabolic steroids may change behavior. But there seems little doubt at the present state of research that, especially in some individuals, anabolic steroids can cause quite profound behavioral changes. This is a phenomenon which has been well known in the bodybuilding underground for decades, the phenomenon of roid rage, as it is sometimes called. In several of the cases, the individual had no prior psychiatric history, no prior history of violence, no criminal record, went on steroids, experienced a Jekyll and Hyde personality change, and then, either impulsively or even with premeditation, committed some aggressive or violent act that was completely uncharacteristic of his normal personality.
Weightlifter Horace Williams murdered someone when he was on steroids. He pleaded insanity. Williams had been taking 2,000 times the recommended dosage.
I've known Horace all of my life, all of his life, pardon me. When he was a baby and his mother wanted to offer him to the Lord, I was the one that took him in the church and prayed for him. He was a very nice little boy. He went to Sunday school, and of course there were times that he came back in the evening to what we call Young People's Endeavor for the youth studies.
As a child, I was always fascinated with strength, muscles. Arnold Schwarzenegger has always been a favorite model to me and for me. And I said, man, I want some arms like that too. I began to go to gyms. And as I began to go to the gyms, I was then introduced, I guess, to the steroid world. And I began to take the injectables as well as the pills at the same time. As a matter of fact, anything and everything that was on the market, I was willing to take it. And the increase in the gains of strength and weight, stamina were incredible. I felt superhuman. I felt like I was in control of not only my circumstances and situations, but everybody else's as well. I felt that there was nothing that was presented or that would be presented to me that I couldn't take on physically.
Some of the psychological effects that I experienced while using anabolic steroids range from paranoia to euphoria. Another feeling I had was increased aggression. I'm an aggressive person by nature, and steroids made me more aggressive.
There was one time when I was riding with a guy that I used to work out with, and was flipping my ear. And as he was flipping my ear, I felt all of a sudden like a bulldog or a pit bull. So finally, I pulled his arm up front where I was at, and I bit down on him, and I began to shake until the guy in the back seat began to scream. He was screaming in pain. He was in agony. And I let him go. And I let him go. I got out of the car, and I stood up, and I just began to cry. And as I was crying, I was saying, man, I'm out of control. I'm out of control, and I couldn't understand it.
I had a short fuse, and that fuse became shorter on steroids. And mainly my problems with violence came in getting into fistfights. I worked as a bouncer, so I could legally get into problems on the weekends without any fear of police action or anything like that.
On the way home, there was a guy standing on the side of the road. He was a hitchhiker. And I don't know who said, but the suggestion was made, let's pick that guy up. And there was no intention, there was no statement of any harm or danger coming to the guy, just drop him off out there, make him strip naked, and leave him out there naked, and drive out with his clothes, and then we'll have something to talk about tomorrow. That was the purpose, that was the plan. So all of a sudden now, I become aggressive. And when he put up resistance, the rage came all over again. I was the one that handled him. We tied him up, and yeah, we punched him a couple times, we kicked him a couple times, played with him with the car, and drove back and forth with the car. It was like I was in a trance. It was like it felt like I was high. And you know, the funny thing about a lot of what happened, I had no memory of detailed events. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that he had died. The thing that grabs me is how in the world could something like this happen to me? How could something like this take place in my life? Because I still can't believe that was me. I still can't believe that. Because it was like two different people, two different personalities. And then there's no clear memory of the events that took place.
What we do not understand at this point in time is why some individuals would be so responsive and others not. It does not appear to have anything to do with their prior psychiatric history, with their family history, with the levels of testosterone in their system. My hunch is that it is some sort of biochemical sensitivity that some people have and some people don't.
One theory is that anabolic steroids lower the level of one of the brain's neurotransmitters, serotonin. Serotonin, as well as giving us a sense of well-being, acts as a dampener or a brake on a whole range of instinctive behavior, including, critically, aggression. Studies of impulsively violent offenders show that their serotonin levels are very low.
Certainly one of the best replicated findings is that violent impulsive offenders have low serotonin levels. And in fact, low serotonin is also found in suicide cases, people who internalize violence on themselves. We know that high self-esteem raises serotonin levels. We also know that low self-esteem and low ranking in the social hierarchy results in lower serotonin levels. What low serotonin does is stimulate you to become impulsively violent. If you're impulsively violent, people around you get scared of you, and perhaps your social dominance may increase, your ranking in the pecking order may go up. So people have speculated that low serotonin may be an adaptive mechanism to help you get further up in the pecking order.
Serotonin levels in the brain can also be dramatically lowered by alcohol.
It's almost everything's alcohol related, everything from drunk driving to the domestic violence to the neighbor disputes over, you know, somebody's sprinkler maybe going over the fence for the last time, and then somebody will get upset and go get a weapon and handle it that way. If alcohol just all of a sudden disappeared off the earth, probably 70% of my job would go away. Because almost everything ends up being alcohol. You know, there could be a dispute between a husband and wife, and add a little alcohol, and it just goes downhill from there.
Serotonin isn't the key to violence, and nor is biology itself alone. A whole is social, chemical, physical, environmental may be involved. When all those factors combine, as in Danny Wortham's case, the result is lethal.
Police picked up 17-year-old Daniel Wortham. Detectives believe Wortham pulled the trigger that killed 26-year-old Tom Simons.
From the start, the odds were stacked against Danny Wortham. He was born premature, weighing just 2 pounds and 11 ounces. His brain was almost certainly damaged as a result of his mother's heavy drinking during pregnancy.
well over a six-pack or two a day. It's a memory I have that she also told me she frequently drank a quart of whiskey a day. Alcohol alone is apparently enough, if given in significant quantity, enough to damage the brain of an unborn child. In combination with cocaine, it's a truly deadly cocktail indeed. And this causes widespread brain damage and alteration in brain functioning right from birth straight forward. This case illustrates Daniel Wortham's left side. One sees some relative fading of activation in this part of the dorsolateral frontal cortex. This is a not uncommon finding in people with deficient judgment and planfulness and with difficulties in impulse control.
Danny's 16-year-old mother never wanted a baby and had tried several times to abort him. Discharged from the hospital, she never even collected her newborn son. The rejected baby was farmed out to a succession of relations and nightmarish foster parents.
These are 4 rhesus macaques who were clinging to each other because they've been deprived of their mother. The females, in turn, become very bad mothers. Amongst both males and females, their social behavior is very disrupted. What we think is that if you disrupt the mother-infant bonding process early in life, the child will grow up to become what we call an affectionless psychopath. In other words, they won't have the same affectional bonds and empathy that most of us have for other people. Why? It's because we think that process is learnt quite early in life during a critical period, roughly speaking from the age of 6 months to 18 months. So if there's disruption between the mother and infant during that critical period, the infant may be less capable of developing and learning social bonds. If I lack social bonds with somebody else and I don't have empathy with the individual, I may be more likely to stick a knife in them to get something that I want because I don't care at all about them as a person.
At the age of 5, Danny Wortham tried to burn down a relative's house. At 14, after a history of violence at his many schools, he was on the streets selling crack cocaine. 3 years later, Danny was arrested for murder.
It's especially when you get a combination of both birth complications combined with the early maternal rejection, that's when you get a really big increase in violent criminal offending 18 years later. It's almost like a catalytic reaction. When you have one chemical coming in combination with another chemical, the birth complications and the maternal rejection together, you've got a really big increase in violent offending.
Danny Wortham couldn't escape his appalling environment, couldn't survive his mother's rejection, and he couldn't find a cure for his brain damage. Can the rest of us do anything to stop more Danny Worthams?
In spite of our interventions, crime and violence rates have shot up. Why? My answer is it's because we have ignored the biological part of the biosocial equation in explaining violence. In other words, the violent offender is made up of a biological component as well as a social environmental component.
Some criminologists are suspicious of biology as offering an apparent cheap, quick fix for crime, open to abuse by politicians and an excuse to avoid tackling the social causes of offending. In fact, the new biological insights into crime argue for a social solution.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to treat an individual who already has brain damage. And so the preferred pathway would be some prevention. And the prevention would be some very careful attention to the pregnancy and delivery of babies. It's the best, by far, the best investment the society can make.
Research has proved the connection between violent crime, birth complications, and maternal rejection. If we can break one link in the chain, the dividends could be colossal.
Knockout birth complications will knock out violence, and we're predicting we could knock out about 18% of all of violence. That may not sound a lot, but bear in mind that 1% of violence accounts or costs society $1.2 billion. Also bear in mind that we have had no successful intervention which has successfully reduced violence by even a few percentage points. What do we do? Well, here's one strategy. Why not give better antenatal and perinatal health care to underserved inner city mothers? If that could help reduce the rates of birth complications, we think that would reduce violence.
If violent crime is a worldwide epidemic, at least science now offers the opportunity of diagnosis of part of its causes, and the hope, at least, of some cure. Biology need only dictate our destinies if we allow it to do so, if we do not dare to defy it.
A Mind to Crime by Anne Moore and David Jessel is available from most bookshops, priced £15.99.